Hey guys, got another unboxing video for you today. This one's kind of a flashback. So, I have bought this off impulse, and because now it completes my collection of the original Final Fantasy games on the PlayStation 1. I have the Final Fantasy Origins collection and the Final Fantasy Anthology collection. So the Chronicle collection completes the basic three-part collection. For those of you who don't know, the original Final Fantasy games were remastered onto the PlayStation console in Japan, I believe sometime in the 90s. And they eventually made it to the US, but it took them a lot longer. They didn't make it to the US in one complete package like they did in Japan. They took a little bit longer. They obviously released them into different packages, and it took them, I believe it took a few years. I think the Anthology collection was the first one, and that was released in the 90s, and then Chronicles came next. This was in 2001, I think, or 2000. And then Origins came like 2003 or 2002. So without further ado, let's open this. So yeah, Chronicles, like as you can read, includes Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger. Now both these games were actually released in the US. The difference between the Origins, which includes Final Fantasy 1 and 2, is Final Fantasy 2 was previously unavailable in Western countries, so that was a big deal. And Final Fantasy 1 was released on the NES, but it was brought to the US by Nintendo. So Nintendo did a lot of the work bringing that to the US. So the version you were getting on the PlayStation 1 was like the true Square version. And the same thing with the Anthology. 6 was available in the US as it was called 3 on the Super Nintendo. That collection also included Final Fantasy V, which was never released in the West. So that was also cool. Now with this collection, both these games were released in the West. Both Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy IV were both available on the Super Nintendo. But these are enhanced versions of both games. So you're not getting completely nothing new for your money. You're getting more enhanced versions and more true versions to the originals. Both games, especially Final Fantasy IV, was censored in the US. You can thank Nintendo of America for that. Both of these games are completely uncensored and closer to their original form. So you're actually getting a pretty good collection. You can tell this version of the Chronicles collection is a later pressing, because on the cover it doesn't say Squaresoft, it says Square Enix. When this collection was originally released, Square hadn't even been bought out by Enix. So yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of sick. I'm a really big fan of the original Final Fantasy games, what I call the original series, which is just 1 to 10. They're some of my favorite video games of all time, and I believe they always will be. I'm not a big fan of the newer ones. 11 was pretty cool. I don't ever talk about 12, because though I have that game, I've actually never played it, because I've always wanted to dedicate a lot of time to it, and I've never really felt like I'd have the time to give to it, because I'm always beating so many other games. 13 was a complete disappointment. Though it's a good game, it's a complete disappointment. And 14 looks cool, and 15 looks amazing, but it's just not Final Fantasy anymore. I take it as a game that's not called Final Fantasy. I take it as a totally new game that has Square's name on it. So that's how I feel. In my opinion, Final Fantasy are the original 10 games that were, directed and designed by the creator of Final Fantasy, which I always tend to forget the gentleman's name. He's a great game designer and a game innovator. So yeah, I'll look. Trailer for Spirit Within. You can tell this is old. So yeah, look at that. Final Fantasy X now available as greatest hits. So yeah, there's the Final Fantasy Chronicles collection. So for those of you who don't know, which you probably do if you're watching this video, you can get Final Fantasies 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the original PlayStation, and then 10 on the PlayStation 2, so you can complete your collection. 3, of course, is the hardest one to find. It was only released in Japan, but they remade it in 2006 for the Nintendo DS, and it's in 3D, so it's cool. So that's the only one you won't find on the PlayStation 1. Oh, and there's also Tactics, for those of you. Final Fantasy Tactics is a great PS1 game. So yeah, thanks for watching.